If I could go back and tell my 24-year-old self one thing, it would be, you may feel like this is the rock bottom chapter, but I promise you, this is just the beginning. I promise you, everything you're going through is preparing you for what you asked for. There is a light at the tunnel, and it does get a hell of a lot better. So hang on tight, enjoy the ride, and you've got this. Welcome to the Finding Your Best Life podcast, a place for the moments in between. I have no idea what I'm doing, and I think I'm finally figuring it out. I'm Megan Lai, personal development coach, mom, and the big sister you didn't know you needed. I've been through the breakdowns, the identity crises, the what now moments, and I'm here to help you make sense of your own. No pressure, no perfect answers, just real talk, reflection, and reminders that you're not alone in this. Each week, I'll answer real questions from people like you. Big questions about identity, confidence, purpose, burnout, boundaries, and building the life you actually want. So if you're in a season of questions, transition, or starting over, this is for you. You don't have to figure it all out today. Just press play, and let's take it one honest conversation at a time. Grab your coffee, take a deep breath, and let's get into today's letter. Dear Meg, I don't really know where to begin, but I just feel lost. I feel like I failed. I had a plan for my life. That plan worked out. I had everything I wanted on paper, and I wasn't happy. Not long ago, I thought I had my life pretty figured out. I was engaged, had a stable job, and everyone around me kept saying how good my life was. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. Recently, I ended my engagement, something I thought I'd never do, and shortly after, I lost someone really close to me. Ever since then, I've been going through the motions, showing up for work, smiling when I need to, but I'm not really living my life, or at least enjoying it. I now second guess everything. I don't know who I am, I don't know what I want, and I have no clue where to go from here. I've moved into a new place that should feel exciting, but instead I just feel numb. Everyone around me keeps telling me to take care of myself and do something for me, but I don't even know where to start. I don't recognize myself, and I miss the girl I used to be. But now I'm wondering if I ever really knew her. I truly feel like I'm in my rock bottom chapter, and I have no idea what my next step is. Everyone around me is getting married, starting their families, in their dream jobs, buying houses, and I'm starting over. I have no idea who I am or what I want to do, and I'm wondering if I'll ever get my fairy tale ending. Everyone around me is #living my best life, and I just want to find mine. Sincerely, a girl trying to find her best life. Any guesses as to who wrote that letter? Me. If you know me, you probably already know that story, but for those of you who are new around here, or for those of you who don't know me, let me share a little bit about my story, where this all kind of came from, and why I'm starting this podcast. At 24 years old, I had just called off my engagement. I had just lost someone who was extremely close to me, all within pretty much a month timeline, and I had never felt worse. I truly felt like I was at my rock bottom chapter. I feel like I failed. I felt like my life was over, that I was basically just going to stay in a job that I didn't truly enjoy. I was just going to go through the motions of life. I was never going to get married. I was never going to start a family. And I wish I could go back and just give that girl a hug and tell her that like life is just beginning. It's not even close to being over. But when you're 24 years old, you don't want to hear that. You don't want to hear that you're young and you have so much life ahead of you and you can do this and there's so much to look forward to and so much ahead of it. At that point in my life, I had this plan for life. I was going to get married at a young age. I was going to start a family. We were going to buy a house. I was going to have my dream job. All of this was going to happen. And that happened, but it wasn't with the right person. It wasn't the right situation. And so having to essentially say goodbye to that life and start over was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. And especially at a time where all of my friends and everyone around me was getting the things that I wanted, I was like, great, now I'm never going to be there. I'm behind. I should be light years ahead of where I am, and now I'm not going to have kids till I'm 50, and I'm not going to get married until forever, and will I ever find this person? And I just went down that rabbit hole of just being scared and afraid of the unknown and not knowing what to do or where to go and not knowing what questions to ask, and kind of just looking for answers without knowing what I was looking for. And so that Christmas, so this all happened in like September, October. That Christmas, my sister gifted me what's called a double play. And essentially you get 45 minutes with a energy goddess. And I promise one day I will learn her exact title, because I still have no idea what it is. And 45 minutes with a naturopath. And then they kind of blend together. So I was gifted that in December of 2014. I did not want to face anything. I didn't want to talk about anything. I didn't want to even think that I needed help until middle of 2016. So it was like almost 2 years. And my mom finally came to me. And if you know my mom, you don't say no to my mother. You just don't do it. And she came to me and she was like, I don't care what has to happen. You're going to that session. And so I booked the session. She drove me. She waited in the parking lot or in the waiting room while I went in. And I walked in thinking, this is stupid. I'm not getting anything out of this. And I left that session a completely different person. And I don't say that lightly. I truly walked into there thinking there's no hope. I had nowhere to go. And I walked out of there feeling like, I can do this. I can start my life over. I have steps. I have tangible things that I can do. I have hope that my life is going to get better. And it wasn't anything crazy, but I walked in and my energy goddess read me like a book, to the point of I was like, did you stalk me on social media? Like, I'm confused. Because I truly sat down and she was like, this is what's going on in your energy. This is what I'm reading with your aura. This is kind of where your path is going. This is what you need. And everything that she said, I was like, yes, 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 yes. And then the naturopath came in and they kind of had some conversation back and forth. And we identified all of these different, like food sensitivities and allergies and things that I didn't realize I had. And essentially my body just wasn't digesting dairy, eggs, corn, soy. And so I had been consuming all of those things and obviously not feeling good. And the minute I cut all of that out and I did this whole reset with her, I ended up losing 30 pounds that summer. And by the end of that summer, I truly felt like a different person. I had lost some weight. I started to feel better about myself. And I've never been someone who's big on the scale, but very big on how I feel. And at the end of that summer, I just felt lighter. I started to see a direction happening. I started to see, I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know what was coming next, but I knew that there was motion behind what I was doing. And so by the end of that summer, I was like, okay, I can do this. And I really relied on Pinterest. I really relied on YouTube. And I would search things like questions to get to know myself better, and questions to ask friends, and questions to ask significant others. And about a year after that, I moved I changed jobs, and I moved to a new area in New York, an area where I knew no one. I knew my boss, and that was it, and his family. But I pretty much spent every weekend alone. I would either go home to my family in Connecticut and hang out with my friends there, or I would finish work on Friday, and Saturday and Sunday, I would literally do nothing. Like, I would go into the office on Monday morning, and people would be like, oh, how was your weekend? What'd you do? And I was like, nothing. Like, I would get up and go to the gym. I would go grocery shopping. I would come home. I'd watch movies. Pinterest, and YouTube. And that was my life. I didn't know how to find friends. And after school, where do you find friends? Like, where do you find friends as a new adult, especially if you're not living in your hometown or living in where you went to school? Like, when you move away from all of your friends and family as a young adult and you're trying to make friends, it's very difficult. Like, what do? Go to a coffee shop and sit there and be like, hi, you're drinking coffee, want to be friends? It's so awkward. So I remember there was one night I went to a paint night and I challenged myself. I was like, I'm going to start doing things by myself. As someone with a preference for extroversion who has no problem like going to a coffee shop and getting work done, I have no problem doing that. But going and sitting at like Panera Bread and eating lunch by myself, I was so embarrassed. And going to a paint night by myself, I was like mortified, but I did it. I forced myself to do it. And I sat down next to this girl and we started talking. I don't even know what about, but we started talking, and eventually like one of her friends came and the three of us started talking and we ended up exchanging numbers. And so I started to have a little friend group. I started to have people that I could text, that I could call, that I could go out with. And then eventually I found some people through work that I could hang out with and I could text and I could contact. And slowly I started to build a little friend group here. And I wouldn't say anyone, at least not at the very beginning, that I was like, this is my best friend. Like, we're connected on a different level. I didn't find those people yet. But I had people that I could at least go out with, that I could hang out with, that I could get out of my apartment with. So I was in that position for a few years. I was working as a project manager. It's still in events. And I went to, I transitioned into a sales position, which was going great. And it was really lucrative. It was great for that. And I had always had a goal to buy a house before I was 30. And that would have gone according to plan. When I called off my engagement, I had $700 in my bank account. And so it took a really long time to build that back up and a really long time to kind of get my feet back under me, especially because I paid for my car, I paid for my insurance, I paid for my cell phone, I paid for everything. And so to buy a home before I was 30 was a really big deal to me. And being in that sales position, I was actually able to do it. So at 29 in 2019, I bought my first home, which is where I am right now. And it was right before the pandemic hit. So house pricing was a lot better there. Interest rates were a lot better. So I bought my first home, which was a really big moment for me. And it was probably one of my biggest accomplishments of like material things. Like, I had bought cars before, I had bought furniture and different things like that, but buying your first home by yourself is a really big deal. And I remember kind of being proud of myself, but also brushing it under the rug as like, okay, this is just one more thing. Like, gotta keep going. And now looking back on it, I wish I had kind of paused a little bit more and been like, you just bought a house. Like, that's really cool. But I didn't. I kept going. So then the next year, the pandemic hit and I was still working full time. I had started fitness coaching, which I enjoyed. And I've always enjoyed fitness. I've always enjoyed working out. I've never been someone who's like super strict about it and someone who's like, you have to work out every day and this, like, no, I've never been like that. But I've always enjoyed it. So I got into fitness coaching and I was able to work out from home, which was a big deal. I'd always gone to the gym, but obviously during the pandemic, gyms were closed. And when they did reopen, you had to wear a mask inside. And I didn't want that. Like, I wanted to work out from home. So finding that platform and getting into coaching gave me a little bit of like a sense of purpose. And I really enjoyed it. Hospitality, I was in the hospitality field and it was never something I was truly passionate about. I got into hospitality because my uncle had said, you'd be really good at this. And so I was like, okay, I'll go to school for that. I wish I could go back and just shake that girl and be like, Look at your interests. Look at what you want to do. I digress. Anyway, so I was in hospitality, got into fitness coaching, which gave me a little bit more of a purpose. I was connecting with people across the country and in Canada, and I was starting to form friendships online. And I started connecting with people, and we were texting, and we actually ended up getting to meet in person. And I'm still friends with a lot of them to this day. But that fitness coaching and that platform gave me purpose, gave me something different that I hadn't experienced before. And so through conversations with my mom, she said, why don't you pursue like life coaching? Why don't you look into life coaching? If fitness coaching is something you want to do, why not take that to the next level? Like, if you want to go get your personal trainer cert, do that. If you want to go into life coaching, do that. If you want to, but go explore that. So again, if you know my mother, you don't say no. So I started exploring life coaching, and I ended up getting on the phone with someone who from IPEC, which is coaching institution school. And I just connected with her so much. I asked her a ton of questions. She told me about the program, and I was sold. I was like, done. This is exactly what I want to do. I'm the type of person where once I make up my mind, it's done. It's happening. Let's go. I don't have time to waste. Like, if I make my decision, I make my decision, and then we're executing that decision. There is no in between. So I started pursuing my life coaching certification. That certification took about a year. Within that timeline, I started dating my now husband, who I also worked with. Never date someone you work with unless it works out like it did for me. So anyway, so we started dating. I had also gotten a puppy in the meantime, who is my soul dog. He is now 5. I cannot believe it. But I got Chase. And then I started dating my husband. And about a year into dating, right? We started dating in March of 21. April of 2022, I quit my 9-to-5. I quit my job in sales to open my own business and to start coaching full time. And it was hands down one of the best decisions I ever made. There are very few moments in my life where I'm like, I'm proud of myself for that. I'm proud of myself for buying my home by myself before I was 30. I'm proud of myself for getting a dog by myself. I'm proud of myself for finally saying yes to dating my husband and actually dating one of the good ones. I'm proud of myself for quitting my 9-to-5, taking a risk, and trusting myself that I could start my own business, that I could do this full time. And so I quit my full-time job, and shortly after that, I began working with the Myers-Briggs company, doing certification trainings for their assessments. So I got introduced to the assessment world. I had known a little bit about it because my mom is also a life coach. And so I was introduced to it, but I never really got into it. Once I started getting into it, everything shifted. I fell in love with these assessments because they actually make a difference. They actually connect with not only me, but also the clients that I work with. So I continue to work with them. I still work with them to this day, but I started down that avenue. I also started down the avenue of my own coaching practice, and I fell in love with the process. Shortly after I started my own business, my husband and I got engaged and started planning a wedding. We ended up getting married pretty quickly. I had known him because we worked together. I had known him for several years beforehand, so I knew what I was getting into. And so we got married rather quickly. We did a destination wedding in Jamaica and basically had a week-long vacation with all of our closest friends. And it was just exactly what we wanted. And so we got back from our wedding / honeymoon and found out literally like the day we got home that I was pregnant. This was November of 22. And so December 23rd, we had planned to tell our entire families that we were pregnant at Christmas. That was going to be like part of their Christmas gift. I ended up miscarrying. We went to the doctor and they did an ultrasound, and they essentially, the baby had never implanted. So needless to say, that Christmas was one of the toughest Christmas we've ever had, I've ever experienced. And that began our fertility journey. We had a fairly complicated fertility journey, and that's can be a completely separate video. But fast forward about a year and a half later, we ended up having our daughter and navigating the newborn trenches together. And that it almost reminded me very similarly of my early 20s when I was navigating the unknown and fears and not knowing what came next and not knowing really how to handle this next stage in life. And I became a different person, and I didn't necessarily like become a brand new person, but I did leave behind an identity before I was a mom. Becoming a mom completely had me shift to a better version of myself, and I started to uncover things like my patience and my stress and different things that I wanted to continue working on and I wanted to continue evolving. And becoming a mom really reminded me of the exact same process I went through in my early 20s. And so that is why a lot of my work now is tailored around the college students, the young professionals, and new moms, because we are all navigating very similar journeys. So since becoming a mom, I obviously have shifted. I've obviously changed, and I think I'm continuing to evolve and continuing to grow and continuing to become the best version of me. And it took me a pretty hard time and a pretty, I don't want to say long time, but I'm still kind of in the process of letting go of who I was. And not necessarily my core values or my beliefs or anything like that, but my capacity. I used to be the girl who wanted to do everything and anything and get it all done in 5 minutes. And now I'm learning that I can do anything, but I can't do everything. And so I'm really being particular in what I take on. My journey began over 10 years ago, and now as I transition into motherhood and taking on my business full time, I'm almost going through the process again. I'm almost taking myself through the exact process I took in my early 20s, but now I'm better equipped. I know the process. I know what works for me. I have a high level of self-awareness. I know what works best for me. I know what my preferences are. And I know I have the kind of roadmap to get myself where I want to be. And that is exactly what I want my coaching to be about. That's exactly what I want this podcast to be. I want this to be a safe space for you to share your struggles, to have the real talk, to have the conversations that people frankly aren't talking about. What you're going through in your 20s, all of those lessons, all of the challenges, they will repeat throughout your lifetime. Maybe in different ways, maybe on different levels. Maybe some will be easier, some will be harder. But when you have the tools, it's easier to navigate. And it's easier to say, oh, I've done this in the past and this has worked for me. I'm going to try this. I'm going to explore this. I know when I'm struggling in this area, I can go to this person. I know I can listen to this podcast. I know I have these tools and resources to be able to navigate the changes, to be able to explore a little bit better. And so that is what this podcast is going to be. I encourage you to write in with your letters. Every week I will be sharing a different listener's letter. They can be anonymous. You can share your names. Eventually, I would love to have this play out in real time. So have a guest on the podcast and they can share their experiences. They can either write the letter ahead of time or they can just share what they're going through and we can kind of have a coaching session live. As a coach, I am not here to give you the answers. I'm not here to tell you a cookie cutter way to handle change or a cookie cutter way to navigate the unknown. What I'm here to do is to ask you questions, to get you to dig deeper, to find the answers within. Only you know what's best for you. As your coach, I'm here to help you uncover what those answers are. What worked best for me may not work best for you. So I will share my stories. I will share my experiences, my tips, my tricks, my tools, my resources. I am an open book. So I will share as much as I possibly can with you. But I want this to be your safe space. Your space to come every single week, hear from listeners who are going through similar struggles, who are facing similar challenges, and offer some insights, offer my experiences, as well as some different takeaways for you to really continue the learning and to take it to the next level in your life. Coaching is all about forward motion. So I want to help you move forward in your life. Begin to take on these challenges and these obstacles in a way where you feel confident and where you feel like you're making progress in your life. I don't want you in survival mode for the rest of your life. I want you thriving. I want you to find and live your best life. So please, I will leave all of the information in the description below. I will leave the link for you to submit your letter. I encourage you to share your experience, share your story, share the struggles that you are facing, because I can promise you, you are not alone. What you are facing right now, someone else out there is facing the exact same thing. And this is a safe space for you to share your story, and let's tackle it together. As always, go find and live your best life, and I'll see you next time. Bye.